KMJ's Sunday Conversation with your host, Alexan Balakian. Sponsored by Gar Bennett. At Gar Bennett, we help growers feed the world.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into an all-new Sunday Conversation exclusively here on KMJ. I'm Alexan Balakian. Who's ready for some football? Yeah, me. Heck yeah. We have a QB1 battle playing out for the new look Bulldog footballers. Did you hear about this? Head coach Matt Entz breaking the huddle on his first training camp as the big dog. You know, his voice was so hoarse, you could barely understand him, which means that whistle is working overtime. Fun times here for Bulldog Country. E.J. Warner, yes, Kurt Warner's son. You know, I covered Kurt Warner when I was doing that whole sports thing. Well, he transferred from Rice. He's ready to be the Bulldogs quarterback, but he's trying to beat out Sac State transfer Carson Conklin. A decision can come soon. I know this is breaking news. Season opener just 20 days away at Kansas. All looking forward to that. All right, now that our juices are flowing because we got football in our blood, let's get you plugged into this week's festivities here on Sunday Conversation. We are on demand because we are in demand, which means we podcast where you podcast. We're also broadcasting on YouTube at KMJ Sunday Conversation. That's me waving to you there. All right, if you missed last week, shame on you. But in case you missed it, we did dish out a heavy dose of the C, Measure C, with the Measure C czar, Steve Brandow, giving his take on what's going on. So this week, one of the first meetings of the Fresno Council of COG, which is Council of Governments, you know, they've been meeting. But it's the first meeting since that whole Brooke Ashton reinstatement issue that went on. So I thought, you know, why are we still talking about Measure C? Because it's important. The impact, its reach, close to millions here that drive through the Central Valley. And, of course, about 1 million people on the ballot that will be voting for it in Fresno County. So the impact is great. So with that said, I want to also chat with the person who is leading the Fresno Council of COG. I keep saying that, Council of Governments, Fresno COG, right? In hopes voters renew the roads tax, and that is my guest, Parlier Mayor Alma Beltran, who, oh, by the way, is also running for Fresno County Supervisor District 4, which is occupied by longtime Supervisor Buddy Mendez. So, Mayor Beltran, welcome to Sunday Conversation. How are you?
Good. How are you? And thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So, by the way, big question. Ready for some football? But we need a road to get to Valley Children's Stadium, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, you know, let's talk about this a little bit. How did you become president of the Fresno Council of Governments?
The process is that there's nominations and they take a vote, and whoever has the most votes gets to be appointed to the position for chair.
And last time in 2024, you were just kind of getting into the mix when it came to Measure C.
Correct.
So what's different for you?
Well, now I'm part of the entire process. I do know what's going on, and at the last for the last measure, I wasn't really aware of what was in the entire measure. So I think it's important to be more involved and know what's actually in it.
And now that you're really involved, do you wish you weren't?
Well, with the chaos, yeah.
There's a lot of chaos.
Yes.
Why?
Well, because, you know, everybody wants to make sure that they get their fair share, and that, you know, they're fighting for their constituents. I get that. Everybody wants to make sure that it's a fair measure for all, and it's always like that in politics.
You know, and Measure C really shouldn't be political. The only political nature about it is there's a tax, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand all the... First of all, they don't understand what COG is. And it's a council of governments, which means there's a lot of elected officials that are in the room. How many for each COG meeting?
It's 15 mayors.
15 mayors.
It's all the mayors.
And so, again, that was happening this week for the first time since the reinstatement of Brooke Ashton. How are you and Brooke getting along now?
Well, I think it would be okay. I mean, I haven't had an issue with him at all. It's just the reason why everything happened was that we want to make sure that everybody follows the rules, and that it is not a fight where it's unjust, things that are being said that are not accurate. We want to make sure that the people are well informed.
And so from your vantage point, when Brooke came on KMJ, you felt there was some misinformation there.
Correct.
And so there was a meeting to see whether he would be eliminated on Fresno COG or would he stay?
Actually, it was several interviews that he had. So it was like a 2-week process of him continuously saying things that were not accurate. We didn't want to do something like from one day to the next. That's not the way we want to work. Unfortunately, Dyer was informed, but he was on vacation, so he did not see the email. But the staff, like his city manager, was informed. It was unfortunate.
Because the mayor first said, Mayor Dyer, I'm talking about, first said, I was not informed about this.
Correct.
But yet he was.
It was through an email because he was on vacation. So if he didn't see it, that's, he's on vacation. He wants to enjoy his family. I get that. But it was not stopping. He was continuously saying things that were not accurate, and we don't want to inform the people,
right?
Especially so early in the beginning of this measure.
So Brooke Ashton is reinstated. Is this how important is it to have him a part of this?
Well, I want to be respectful to the decisions of who they want to represent their community. I get that. All the mayors had a recommendation. So did Dyer. We have all one recommendation. Dyer had 3. And I think it's about being respectful to respect the fact that he supports the people that he wanted to represent Fresno and give them the opportunity to work through this, and just to reassure us that he's going to follow the rules.
So, is it smooth now? Do you feel like you're past some of the chaos and you're moving forward with this, or do you feel like there's been a lot of talk that there's some underground currents that are working against that notion of moving forward for Measure C, which Buddy Mendez, the supervisor that you'll be running against, is part of that undercurrent, if you will. Do you feel there's a lot of it's not so much bickering, but there's like silent partners in all this? Yes,
I do. Well, we did hear about the meetings that this other group was working on, with the former executives from Fresno, from FCTA, and also from COG. So, we understand everybody wants to make sure that it's a fair measure, but I think having 2 will only make it fail.
So we're in this process now. At what point and especially in your role, do you feel that a majority vote, a supermajority vote, can get across the finish line if you were to do that today?
Not so early in this, because of all the chaos already kind of started us in a bad pathway. So it's if that wouldn't have happened, if we would have all worked together, we probably would be able to be successful. I'm not sure, just because of all the chaos that we've been dealing with.
What's the messaging on this, though? What's the message to voters at this point? Voters are kind of looking at this and saying, it's just another tax. But do they really understand that that if you don't have this roads tax, that we could be buying tires 3-4 times a year because we're going to get a bunch of flat tires?
Well, there's a lot of misunderstanding of actually what Measure C is. There's so much into Measure C. It's not all potholes. Everybody thinks, well, we have a lot of potholes, so it's not successful. We have seen so many roads that are damaged, and they think that that's all it covers. It covers so much. It covers safe routes to school, the airport, runway also. So there's the airport, infrastructure there. You have the 180, and I always keep saying this. Back, it used to be Kings Canyon Road.
Yeah.
And in 2000, it passed for the expansion. So if that wouldn't have passed, we would have Kings Canyon Road today with the same kind of traffic. So now we have 180, and it's so much better, safer, for commuters. So it has a lot it funds a lot of things, not just potholes.
And that's sidewalks.
Right.
That's but also there's this big cry for public transit. There's a little portion that is calling for broadband. How much of that is really going to be a bigger piece of the pie, or is it the goal of COG to have it stay the same?
It's going to be the same. It's not going to cover housing. It's not going to cover broadband. That's not a transportation, measure. That does not come along with it. So people may say things as far as what they would like to see that is not part of the measure, but that doesn't mean that we're going to do it, because it doesn't seem logical to do something like that, especially when it's infrastructure for roads and making safe routes to school, also sidewalks. It's trails. It covers so much more, but it's all about a safe environment for the communities.
You said you're early in the process. I get it, and that's why I kind of want to really, for the last couple of weeks on this show, particularly, get off out of the gate to get that jump start on what this is going to look like on the ballot in November of 2026, because we'll blink and it'll be here. Right. And I think my biggest thought is that right now it's at a supermajority vote. At what point do you say we have to hand that off to the signatures so we can get a 50+1?
I think we can do it. It's just about us uniting and trying to focus on the measure and not so much about our differences. There's so much of that going on, not working with this group or that group. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about the people that we're going to, that make their commute safer.
Is there shouting in the room during some of these meetings?
Sometimes, yes.
Shouting?
Yes.
Is there cuss words that fly across the room?
No, that's one thing they don't. But they do get a little bit more passionate. I do see that. But it's okay. I mean,
do people walk out of the room because they're so mad?
No, they won't. They just get passionate about what they feel, and they want to make their point across. And sometimes others might interrupt, so they get more excited about, you're not letting me speak. And so that happens.
Before we take a break, Steve Brandow, as I mentioned, was on this show, and he's been the anointed one by the Central Valley Community Foundation, which is run by Ashley Swearingen, the former mayor. He has been what I dub the czar of Measure C, because he has to be this glue that puts all the pieces together. How big is his role in your eyes?
It's not a big role. It's just to make sure that he talks to the mayors and informs them what's going on. It's just about making sure that everybody's informed. When we don't have the information and someone says something that's misleading, they're going to think that it's, especially if it's coming from our steering committee. If someone says something that it's not accurate, the rest of the mayors are going to believe that it's actually true because it's somebody from inside. So his role is to make sure that the mayors are well informed.
I love how you call it the steering committee, because it's like a car, right? If you go hard left, hard right, and then you can make a U-turn or fall off the road or whatever. But I love how you guys, I don't think it's really, was it?
It's named
It's named after that. Oh, okay, there you go. Very good. All right, I want to take a break. We're talking with the Parlier mayor, Alma Beltran, and she's running for supervisor. How much does Measure C play into the part of running for that seat? We'll talk more about that as you are listening to Sunday Conversation exclusively here on KMJ. We'll be right back. Welcome back to KMJ Sunday Conversation. I'm Alexander Balakian. We're talking with the mayor of Parlier, who also is the president of the Fresno Council of Governments, in charge of trying to get everybody in line so we can get Measure C. What do you want to call it? Steering in the right direction. There we go. So Alma Beltran is with us. So Alma, I want to move more towards, you're now running for supervisor, but how Measure C is really going to play a big part in that. And you are running against Buddy Mendez. And there seems to be, obviously, Buddy Mendez, you feel, is part of that undercurrent that we talked about.
Correct.
How much of Measure C, because it's politically charged, we do know that, it's just one of those things. How much do you think your candidacy is riding on Measure C?
Well, it does depend on it, because any mistakes, or if it fails, of course, a lot of the voters are going to be upset with that, because it would feel like they were failed on, So my focus is not really to look too much at that. I just want to make sure that we pass a measure, because I've been the mayor for Parlier for 11 years now, and I know how much we depend on those funds. And I know all the rural communities depend on it a lot. And I always keep saying Fresno will survive, Clovis will survive, the rural communities will not survive. There is no way that they're going to have roads, maintenance done and safe routes to school. Any of the funding that we receive right now, there's no way we would be able to substitute that. So it's a lot.
So after 11 years of being the mayor of Parlier, you feel you're ready to take on being a supervisor. Why do you feel the time is right?
I think I've made sure that I've also been involved in not just in the city of Parlier, but also involved in, like, now that I'm on the COG, I'm more for the county, and I'm also on another board, which is the San Joaquin Valley Board of Directors. Mm-hmm. And that covers the entire San Joaquin for also infrastructure. So we always look at those funds too. So I think it just looking at a more broader area instead of just Parlier. So it's still servicing a lot of the people that we currently service, especially with Fresno Council of Governments. I just think that I'm ready for it because, it's about the people. I do know I was one of the people that would show up at the council meetings complaining and saying, hey, this is not being done, that's not being done. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got involved. And so I know that, being a person that when I say I'm going to look into this, I look into it and I get back to people. I try to make sure that if there's something that we can do, we follow through. And that's been my model since I started. So there's been a lot of accomplishments for Parlier. And I think that I can do the same for the county. So
you don't, I'm going to just point blank ask it. Do you feel Buddy Mendez has done the same as supervisor, or that is, again, why you're running?
No, I just think that I could do what I think I want to do, and we may have different of ideas or perspectives. I'm not going to say that he has done absolutely nothing because I really don't know what the other communities might say, but I just want to give it a shot to see if I can bring to the county what I have been able to bring to my community in Parlier. And that's my focus. I respect him. I have nothing against him. I've always, considered him a friend. Mm-hmm. So it's not something like I'm going after him. That's not the way I work. I just want to bring to the table what I can bring. Everybody has their own ways of dealing with things and maybe working differently than what is currently happening.
So running for Fresno County Supervisor, how much is your life, do you believe, going to change? Because we know not any race goes without a little dirty politics involved.
Oh, I'm sure everything is going to get thrown at me. It happens to me at every election for the city of Parlier. That has happened.
Yeah. How much are you ready for that, though? This is obviously a little bit bigger scale.
Well, one thing that I always say, because everybody tells me, how do you deal with this, when they keep attacking you and saying things and always the negative, correct? I think working in the Department of Corrections for the amount of years that I did as a correctional officer and also as a case manager, I think that prepared me for a lot of the negative and not let things just, you have to let it roll off.
Yeah. I want to move on to a little bit about Parlier and some of the things that you had been facing. Now you say you're conservative.
Yes.
Correct? And you mostly, and I don't want to misspeak here, but you mostly agree with President Trump's policies.
Of course.
How do you feel about his policy of how ICE agents are coming into communities and trying to do their job? But yet there's been a lot of misinformation, but there's also been a lot of misguided ICE attempts to get the right people.
Yes. Nothing's perfect. Mm-hmm. Working in the department, they can have a strategy and a plan. Does it always work out the same way that you plan for things? No, it doesn't. It's in a perfect world. Yes, that can happen. But, reality is not that, because we don't know how the people might react. And there's a lot of misleading information. And the good thing is that a lot of my community members don't go with the false narratives out there.
And there's a lot of I don't know this for a fact, but I would it's a farming community, right, Parlier, yes. And a lot of farm workers live in Parlier.
Yes,
is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is it fair to say a lot of undocumented farm workers live in Parlier?
I'm sure we have our fair share, but we also have the documented immigrants there too. So,
what's been the level of fear living in Parlier, at least maybe that you've heard or you've seen for some of the undocumented farm workers?
I have not seen that. That's why I think by just informing our community with the accurate information reduces that fear, because the kids still went to school. Maybe work being at the fields, I'm not sure there because I don't know that information. But one of the things that was mentioned that kids were not going to school, and I have a good relationship with our superintendent, and he has not seen that as well.
And so, whole and whole, you feel the city of Parlier has not been disrupted?
No.
By ICE?
No.
Has any ICE agents ever come in to do any sort of arrest or raid?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
And so when you talk to a lot of your community members, is there anyone coming to council meetings and saying, hey, we saw this, that, and the other? No.
And then I would get sometimes some people that have reached out to me, and one of the pastors would say, hey, do you think that they might be coming into the churches? Because that's another thing they were saying. I said, no, absolutely not. And he said, okay, that was it.
And that was it? That
was it.
So right now, what is your biggest challenge as mayor of Parlier as you get ready to not only tame all the hearts and minds of Fresno COG, but to also make this run for supervisor? What's your biggest challenge in front of you?
Well, just making sure that the people see what my track record was, and is. I've accomplished a lot for the city of Parlier. We were about to lose the police department. We have a fully staffed police department. We are working on a new facility, with the funding that we're receiving. So there's a lot that has come into Parlier. 24/7 fire department. We were able to reduce a lot of the past deficits, Unfortunately, right now we're seeing that again, but that's because of, the economy is not the way we expected it to be, and so we're losing a lot of funding, and that's why I know that a lot of the rural communities depend a lot on the grants and Measure C and all these other funds.
Are you okay now? See, a lot of the educational funding for the federal side is leaving because of Trump's new policies, and a lot of that federal funding helps Parlier. Am I correct by that?
Yes, it does.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that if they really analyze and if they really look at the entire, education system and where they need to make those cuts, because we're always going to have to make cuts. When there's a deficit, even the city of Parlier has had to do that. And if we have to make those cuts just so that we can get out of deficit, we can't continue to keep going the same way and doing the same things and expect a different outcome. So making cuts is part of of how things are. You reduce a lot of the wasteful spending, and if there's wasteful spending, you got to reduce that. You can't continue that way.
All right, lots to look forward to as you steer Measure C and Fresno COG. Yes. The mayor of Parlier, Alma Beltran.
Thank you.
Hey, so good to have you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we get back, we have our panel. Roger Bonakdar, he's a lawyer. He also ran for Fresno City Council, and we also have Mayor Pro Tem from the city of Clovis, Diane Pearce. What are we going to talk about? Well, you have to get past the commercial break to find out. That's next here on Sunday Conversation. Welcome back to Sunday Conversation here on KMJ. So if you managed to get through the break, now I could tell you what we're going to be talking about here on the panel. So before we do, let's introduce you to the panel. And so here they are. Fresh back from her trip in Memphis. In fact, she rushed back, took an extra flight all the way to get here at KMJ to be on the show. Mayor Pro Tem of Clovis, Diane Pearce.
Only for you, Alex.
I don't know how you do it.
Presence of greatness.
There it is. I feel like KMJ was almost another Graceland coming.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have our local attorney, Roger Bonakdar, famously known for his success against the Bitwise folks and former Fresno City Council candidate. So good to have you both.
Thanks.
Let's start with Measure C, because it is a hot button issue, because it impacts just not the area. It impacts drivers going in and out of the Central Valley. It impacts everyone. So Measure C, now that Brooke Ashton is back reinstated, are feelings and tempers, are they simmering? I know, Diane, you and Lynn, you guys love each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then, but still, there's
disagreements.
There's disagreements. There's not eye to eye.
No.
How are you working through your area, and then how do you feel like Fresno COG is moving forward?
Well, we're really kind of at that rubber meets the road point with it.
Right.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
With the steering committee, they have a relatively short window to bring these policy proposals forward, and we're really going to see if the intentions are going to be realized. I'm not holding my breath. I am not optimistic about it. I'll be honest. But hey, that's what the Fresno COG Policy Board decided to do, was to allow transportation for all to have, over 30, almost 32% of the seats on the steering committee. And now we get to see exactly how that shakes out. So it's not going to be too much longer before we know if this thing is really going to take off or not.
Before we get to Roger's thoughts real quick here, is being a part of this, Diane, are you ready to just say, let's just get the signatures going and get to the 50+1 area?
So ultimately, I'm not holding my breath for this steering committee and what they're going to bring forward. I think there's two options. I think it just kind of blows up and they can't get, anything going. And so it just kind of falls apart on its own. Or I think what they do bring forward, whether the COG board approves it or not, I'm not sure the Fresno County Board of Supervisors is going to find something that suits their interests and what they believe to be in the best interest of Fresno County residents when it comes to a Measure C extension. So I think there's multiple reasons to think that a potential plan B of a citizen-led, signature-driven petition is at least possible, if not likely.
All right, Roger, your thoughts on that?
The practical reality is you need those conflicting voices at the table. And if you don't have them, then you guarantee, as Diane really pointed out beautifully, the Board of Supervisors coming in with a whole new set of concerns. Because if you're pulling the voices, the contrarian voices or the balanced voices off that committee, out of that group, then do you really have a decision that reflects the will of the community? It's a pretty easy answer to say no at that point. So it's I think they did the right thing with getting Ashton back into the dialogue, but I am also I take great pause with the idea with the balance and the sheer numbers that are and the representation of a certain interest and other interests on balance. The idea that we have one person from the city of Fresno, but is it 12 or is it 13?
It's 12 from Transportation for All. City of Fresno actually has 3, but all the other cities in Fresno County just have 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but that's a huge balance considering that Fresno is the largest municipality and is the most directly affected from this. So we really need to make sure that that all voices are at the table, even the ones you don't agree with, so that way you can at least represent to the people. This reflects a balanced discussion.
How confident, now, if you were on city council, how confident are you that Measure C is getting across the finish line?
At this point, I have some significant doubts. I think Diane is absolutely right. There's some balance of voice issues there. There are material concerns that are going to come from the Board of Supervisors. And I think people actually might prefer the ballot approach. I don't know how successful even that will be, but here we go.
So the headline here is the 40-year roads tax in desperate need of some patchwork. Okay.
There you go.
How about this week? Kamala Harris not running for California governor. Now, I know a lot of people are cheering. Steve Hilton, one of them. I know the other Democrats that are running, Javier Becerra mainly, they're jumping for joy. At the end of the show, I'm going to tell the folks why I think this is really bad news for Steve Hilton. But, Roger, I'll start with you. Are you surprised by this decision?
No. I think that when we heard from Willie Brown and we heard from some other important personalities within California that this was not her time, I assumed that we would shortly hear that former Vice President Harris was not going to run. Yeah. She is very much well entrenched within the party and is going to follow the will of the party. It was the will of her party to make her the candidate for president when they made her candidate for president. I mean, think about it. She was made the Democratic nominee without a convention. That was a historic event. Someone who is willing to, who needs that coalescence and support of her party, and that level is not going to rock the boat. So when we heard from Willie Brown, I think we knew it was done.
Diane, obviously, we know you're hardcore Republican. Is this good news or bad news for this race?
So I think there's kind of two ways to look at it, and I can kind of imagine what your take might be.
Oh,
saying,
I wonder. I don't even know what I'm. No, I'm just
so I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, please do so.
But I think the key, if it is a negative for the Republican side, is that she is so well known. And all of her faults have been laid bare by Donald Trump and the recent presidential campaign and her disastrous 107 days as a candidate. And the fact that she received no primary votes for president. She didn't even make it to California in the 2020 primary election and was underperforming in the polls here before she dropped out of the presidential race. So I don't think it is hard to imagine that for once, a politician set their ego aside and recognized, I'm going down in flames again. I better not do it. But the problem with that is, like I say, she's so well known and her faults have been so exposed that whoever is going to take the Democrat nomination, essentially for governor, is going to be a lesser known quantity.
Yeah.
And that makes it more difficult for a Republican to argue that they need to change the whole political landscape.
I'll just say real quick before we get to our next topic, I think the big winner in that decision is Governor Newsom. He does not have to endorse her to ruin his presidential candidacy.
But I think the problem is he has to expect that why she passed on this is she might have eyes to run for president again in 2028.
I don't know about that. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's not done.
She's not.
Oh, okay.
She's too young. She's young enough. B, I mean, let's be practical here. When they got behind her, they put a lot of dollars behind her. I mean, how much did she raise? I can't even.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
How much did she blow? $1 billion.
And ended up in the negative at the end of things. But I think that what Diane pointed out most importantly, and is the fact that she was so polarizing. So it would have made it easier for any Republican against her than someone like Javier Becerra.
Or Katie Porter or
anybody.
Yeah.
So I just want to let you know, Simon & Schuster called. They want your addresses to know where to put her 107 Days new book on your coffee table. So
perfect.
I'll get back to them on that. All right. Hey, there's a lot of interesting he said going on with Costco, our favorite place to shop. Gas up.
Yeah.
Madera versus Fresno. And it's kind of playing out all over the place a little bit. We know that there was a judge that agreed with an environmental group about the last mile of this zoning area for Costco, way out near El Pasillo, where Riverside Golf Course is, Herndon and Riverside Drive. And it's not going to be built just yet. And then there was this concern where Mike Carbasi comes forward and says, well, we don't want to lose it to Madera. The fact is, there are certain people that may think that Madera may have the beat on this. Is it better to do business in Fresno or Madera? Where's Costco looking now? Or does Fresno still own this? They'll get it reversed. Don't panic. Or is it going to the city of Clovis?
Well, I'm going to be calling Costco. No, no, I do think that the real issue here isn't so much Fresno versus Madera, but it's the wrench in the deal that environmental activism plays in these things. Right. The fact that a judge got involved because a group sued the city of Fresno over the zoning issue for this, which really, I mean, if you want to look at it, you see the layout and everything. Man, these guys just mucked it up for the city of Fresno. They had a great property. They had a great plan for it. They had everything. All their ducks were in a row until some environmental activist group says, we don't like it, so we're going to throw a monkey wrench in there. And a judge, for whatever reason, went along with them initially. So all that does is open it up to questions. And now you have Madera saying, hey, we don't have those kinds of problems up here. We don't listen to that opposition. We don't have those people, messing things up for us. So look over here.
And hey, I'll tell you, Roger, when you ran your campaign, you had all the businesses behind you because they knew there was so much red tape in the city of Fresno.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was one of the big things you were running on, to clear up that red tape.
Definitely, absolutely. And Diane hit the nail on the head. The issue is time has value. And this doesn't mean the project is dead. It means it's delayed. But what people forget, and it needs to be emphasized, is when you have this delay, it costs the city money. This costs tax revenue. So all those, every one of those sales tax dollars is now deferred. In a situation where every municipality is prospectively looking at a budget crunch, everybody's tightening belts, everybody's looking for dollars to shave and save. And the idea of going to Madera, look, Madera it's a known fact that it's easier to build and develop in Madera. But the challenge that was lodged by this group could have been done in Madera, it could have been done in Sanger, it could have been done anywhere. I mean, the grounds are the grounds. I disagree with the analysis myself. I think the project kind of took, maybe a little longer than it needed to get to this phase. I think I've read the pleadings, and I wonder that if there's really truly standing, which means if these plaintiffs, this environmental group, was really a proper party to challenge this to begin with. There's all these layers to the onion, but most importantly, as Diane pointed out, this is a statewide problem. It is way too hard to build anything in this state, even what the state, quote, says it wants, right? They want housing. They make it difficult to add housing. They impose all these restrictions. I mean, I can't wait to see what happens when all of those folks in the Palisades and along the water in Malibu try and rebuild. It's not going to happen. No. And when we look back at this in about 2 years and we see that entire strip of Malibu, not a single house has been built, we'll look back and say, these are California policies that did it.
All right. I got to cut it there.
Yeah.
We did so well. We built a conversation that it went right into the break. So, Roger Bonakdar, Diane Pearce, thank you so much for being here. When we get back, why it's bad news for Steve Hilton that Kamala Harris dropped out. That's next. Finally, let's get social, and lo and behold, her decisions come in. And I think Democrats and Republicans are both rejoicing here. Kamala Harris has decided to watch the race for California governor from the sideline, and Republican primary frontrunner Steve Hilton called it great news. Well, I completely, utterly, profoundly disagree. It's bad news for Steve Hilton and the Republican Party. And Steve Hilton has said it himself. Kamala's track record of word salads and absence at the border and her strange messaging during the presidential campaign, the strange handoff from Biden to Harris, it all added up to a landslide victory for Donald Trump. So everyone thought Kamala was gearing up for that run for governor. And that would have been the best ally for Steve Hilton. Kamala Harris was the favorite in some of these early projections and polls. But as you know, those have zero meaning, and it's just words and numbers filling a page. Steve Hilton could have exposed Kamala's political record and her record as a state senator and even as attorney general. So this decision to back out in strange ways, out-of-the-box thinking here, means the Democratic Party may have just secured another win for one of their candidates. Javier Becerra, Eleni Kunialakis, Katie Porter, Antonio Villaraigosa, Tony Thurmond, they're all lining up. So now comes that all-important next moment. Who's Kamala and Gavin going to endorse? That will also be a game changer. I wonder if they will ultimately stay out of it until the primary, of course, after the primary. But why is Kamala sitting out? Did she forget to pay off her presidential campaign bill? Is the Democratic Party falling out of love with Kamala? Or is it because she's ready to try her hand at becoming the world-renowned author? Did you hear about this? She's writing a book about the shortest presidential campaign in modern history. The book is so eloquently titled 107 Days. It promises to give us the true behind-the-scenes tale of her campaign crumbling into pieces. Kamala is not running for governor simply because she knows she would get beat out again. And for Steve Hilton, this is not great news. In fact, it's now an uphill climb to victory. And that's my time. And that's Sunday Conversation.